Well, happy Friday, guys. All right, we're going to talk today about who's feeling busy and overwhelmed. So, I've been doing a time audit. Some of you guys are doing it too, for myself and for our Hey Girl You Can community. And I had done one years ago, and it was just very life changing for me and how I was using my time. And so, I'm doing another one. And I'm learning a lot about my time. One thing that I'm also really learning that is unfortunate is I don't have great sleep habits and sleep hygiene, and there's a lot of reasons for that, but one bad night of sleep, it really does impact the next 2 or 3 days in a huge, huge way of just one night going to bed too late, not doing, the things that I know to be doing to have good sleep hygiene, how the next day it just super impacts it and even up to 2 days later. So that's been very eye-opening. We think that like, oh, we can just make that up, and it really I think at this age that really doesn't happen. Well, what I want to talk about today is this concept uh, of being feeling so busy. And it was a conversation that I had a couple of days ago with somebody. And she was talking about how she was trying to book appointments with people, and everybody was coming back with, I'm just so busy. I'm just so busy. I'm so busy. And we hear this all the time. We hear this with in business when you're maybe trying to book a client and they're just so busy. You might have a business where you like within my direct sales business where I help people start businesses and they're like, I really want to start a business, but I'm just so busy. I see this within Hey Girl You Can with people who are like, I want to do these things for my business, but I'm just so busy. It's one of the things that we do when I do clarity calls with people. It's kind of getting clear on like what's going on here and this concept. And we were talking about how, I started my first business back in 2000, no, 1998. And I worked that business obviously at a time initially where there was really no online. People didn't shop online. You didn't have a website, things like that. But I've worked that business for a long time through a lot of seasons. And I think back like 10 years ago, 10 years ago, 2015, right? And I think from 2015 to like 2005, let's use that 10-year gap. And I was coaching women. I was coaching women to start businesses. I was working with clients. I was booking appointments. I don't think that people were less busy. So this idea that I'm just so busy today, I don't think is true. I will say back then, people still had kids who were overextended in sports. They still had traveling soccer and all of these crazy teams. Women were still working. We're not talking about like the 60s and 70s when most people were at home moms. Women were still in the workforce and they had jobs and they were working. So it wasn't that women were home and now all of a sudden we're all at jobs and we're working, right? People still had a lot going on. There was still the PTA and there was still church activities and there was still volunteering and kids were still involved in things and there was Girl Scouts and there was still a lot of things pulling at people's attention. I mean, I remember, and this is years and years and years ago, sitting down with a woman and she was working and she had kids and we were talking about all the activities they were in. And I mean, their activities were like a full-time, part-time job, just keeping track of all of that. I think about when I was a kid growing up, and this is in the 90s. I was in drama club, I was in competitive dance, I was in a volunteer program, I was doing community theater. My mom was driving me all over the place, right? And so I don't actually think that it's that we're more busy. We still had houses to clean. We still had kids that we had to cook for. You still had a dog that threw up and a kid that got the flu. Like we still had all of those things. But here's what I think was significantly different. We were not inundated with a massive amount of information that we had to process every single second of the day. Our brains were not as cluttered as they are now. And why is that? This. I think this is why we feel so busy. We have an electric leash that keeps us on high alert all day long. And let's dissect this a little bit. When I started my business and people called, I had an answering machine. How many of you had an answering machine? Tell me in the chat, how old are you? Let's play this game. How old are you? Do you remember the answering machine? Do you remember you got home and there was a blinking light and you would stand there for maybe 10 minutes and listen to your messages? Now, and I usually have my phone on silent. I had turned it off for a reason, but did you just hear that? Ding, ding, ding. I'm going to put it on silent now. And I'm going to talk to you about why I do this. We get ding, 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 ding all day long. I was at the gym on Monday or Tuesday, and I was in the locker room getting ready, and there was this girl, and I kept hearing ding, 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 and I was like, "What the heck is going on?" It was literally just her phone. She was getting dressed. She had on an Apple Watch, so I'm like, "Oh my gosh, is this dinging on your wrist as well?" So her wrist is dinging, her phone is dinging, and she's just standing there. And I will say, she was a girl probably in her 20s, beautiful young girl. Didn't seem really phased by it because it's become our norm. It's become our norm. I will be in stores. How many of you guys have this in stores? And you hear, like the Ring at your house. It has that, like if you have the Ring light, that Ring camera at your front door, and it has that special sound that when somebody goes to your front door, it goes off. And I will hear that randomly. And it used to kind of freak me out. Be like, who's at my house? Why is my Ring on? And it's because everybody has the same one. So literally, there are people who walk around, and every single time somebody comes to their house, they're getting an alert, and that's more information to take in. Okay. It's something like the average person, I'm going to Google it so I don't tell you the wrong thing. The average person gets like 150 emails a day. Let's find that out. How many emails does the average person a day get? We'll see if I was even close. It says the average person receives 120 to 120 emails per day, including a mix of work-related, personal newsletters, and promotional messages. Of course, this varies greatly by role of what you do. And 60%, this is interesting, 60% of emails are opened on mobile devices. Half of all emails in 2025 were spam. Half. So what does that tell me right away? If 60% of our messages are being opened on our phone, that's not that we're sitting down and we're saying, okay, this is my 15 minutes to open my email, the way we went to our answering machine and we said, here's my 10 minutes to listen to my message. This is all day long in the midst of everything else I'm doing. I have to take in more information. I have to funnel in more information. We cannot go anywhere without media in our face. I live in New Jersey where we don't pump our gas. And I was recently in another state where I had to get out of the car and pump my gas. And I put the thing in, I'm pumping my gas. And all of a sudden I hear this voice and I'm like, what is that? And it was literally an ad in the gas pump. Like I could not even stand there and pump my gas with my own thoughts. Instantly an ad came out of the gas pump. I was like, what the F is this? Literally. We are bombarded. We are bombarded with spam text messages, spam phone calls, email, ads constantly all day long in our face. And this is information that we need to process. And that information that we need to process, I believe, is why we are exhausted. This is my personal opinion, but I believe it is the information overload of input that makes us feel, I am so busy, because we are so overwhelmed with having to input all this information. So, how do we fight back against this? Because here's what I see happen, and it's sad. Number one, if we are constantly telling ourselves, I'm so busy, and our kids are hearing that, we are setting them up for a life of anxiety because they're going to think that's what life is. Life is just, you're always just too busy. And I used to think that by saying I'm so busy, that was a badge of honor. And I've shared this before publicly. I was somebody who's always been very busy. I was very involved in college. I was very involved in high school. I've always been extremely busy. And I used to feel like that made me important. I was not aware of that. Like looking back, it wasn't a conscious thing, but now being aware, I'm like, that made me feel like I was an important person, that I had so much to do. I wore it like a badge of honor. Oh my gosh, I'm so busy. I love being the busy person. That means I'm really important. And I had an aha moment where I woke up and had to say to myself, Tara, it is not that makes you important. It makes you a bad time manager. And more importantly, a bad priority manager, because you're so busy. Like, everybody gets 169 hours a week, Tara. You and Beyonce and Taylor Swift, who wrote like 17 albums and toured 3 planets. Like, what makes you think that this is a good thing? This just means that you can't really manage your time well, and you can't set boundaries well, and your priorities might be out of whack. And I went, ooh. Oh my gosh. There's a book out right now that, oh gosh, who was it? Charlie Kirk, I wrote. I guess it's like his last book. I don't really even understand this whole thing, how he wrote a book, whatever. There's a book about taking a Sabbath. And I've had people talking about this, and I'm like, I started that 4 years ago. I started taking a Saturday Jewish Sabbath 4 years ago. Life changing. Life changing. I'll do another video about it, but life changing when I started taking it. And not on a Sunday, it was on a Saturday. It was this whole big thing. It was very God driven, but it totally changed my life. And interestingly enough, I did it for a couple of years, fell out, and then got to a season where I was like, I need to go back to doing that. And it will change your life. It will change your life. The Jews, they've been onto something for a long time. The rest of us need to catch up on. Totally off topic, but it's, well, not because it's the input. We need to lessen the input so that we don't feel so overwhelmed. Because here's again what I see. What happens is when we think we're too busy, then when really good things come along, we can't say yes to those things. When really great opportunities come along, we don't feel like we have the bandwidth to even take that on because we're so busy. So we're setting a poor example to our children. We're burning ourselves out. I mean, go Google burnout. It's everybody's searching. What do? I'm so burned out. So how do we fight against this? So I'm going to give you some tips of some things that I've implemented. Clearly, I am not a master at this. This is why I'm doing a time audit this week, because I have been feeling overwhelmed. I have been feeling like at the end of the day, I didn't get the things done that I wanted to get done. And I feel like I'm not moving the needle in the direction that I want it to be moved. And I need to kind of figure out what are my time wasters or things that I'm doing that really aren't at the end of the day very important. And this is why all week I've been doing this time audit. And again, if you're in the Hey Girl You Can community, you already have access to this. We did a kickoff video on Monday. You can go watch the video. It's in your, it was emailed to you and it's in our Facebook group. You can download the workbook. It's in your membership portal. And if you were not part of that and you would like to be part of that, you can go to just taragonline.com. Don't go to links, just go to taragonline.com, go under offers. And in there, you will see the time audit. Time audit is one of the workbooks that's in there. And so that's that. So let's talk about some of the things that I do. So 24-hour rule. I do not say yes or no to anything without waiting 24 hours, even things I want to say yes to. I always give myself 24 hours to make a decision. That way I do not need to make a decision on the spot. Is this something I should say yes or no to? I have a whole blog about it. It's on the heygirlyoucan.com blog. And it is just called the 24-hour rule. I've also done a YouTube video on that. You can go into my YouTube station and find it, how I work the idea, the methodology behind it, the mindset behind it, but 24 hours. Number 2, I take a Sabbath. I take a Saturday Sabbath because Sabbath means Saturday. It doesn't mean Sunday. I know that's going to be like, for a lot of people, but I take a Saturday Sabbath and it is life-changing because it resets your brain. It literally resets your brain. And I believe that I get more done in 6 days by taking a Sabbath than I do in 7 days. I also believe God calls us to rest and even God needed a day off. And so you do too. So I take a Sabbath. And then the other big thing, and this is a mentor of mine years ago had told me this, and I remember almost falling out of my chair saying, I cannot do this. I cannot do this. And she said, try it. And I've never stopped. My phone is on silent, do not disturb, do not vibrate 100% of the time. No, let me phrase that. 99% of the time. I only turn it off the way it was right now is if I'm waiting for something specific, waiting for a specific call. That could be from like a doctor, somebody. Now, you can set your phone to have certain people go through. So my daughter, her number always comes through. She's the only one in my family. Don't tell Jack. She's the only one in my family that will always come through my phone. When she was younger, her school was on there. Her school always could get through to me, even when it was on do not disturb and silent. So my daughter and her school were the only ones who had direct access to me all the time. Everybody else, it does not. Now, the key is not just silent, because a lot of times when people put their phone on silent, it vibrates. That is still information you have to put into your brain. My phone just vibrated. I mean, it doesn't move. It's like it's off. This used to totally tick off my family. Probably still does. But here's my thing. It is an electric leash, and I will not be leashed to anyone. Because if I'm working on something, even if it dings, do you know that there's a ton of research that even just that ding, even if you don't answer it, that ding takes away your mental focus, it distracts you, and you lose productivity. And what happens is you have to decide in that moment, do I answer this or not? You have to decide in this moment, is this important or not? And that takes decision making. And we wake up with a certain amount of decision making during the day, and it depletes throughout the day. And so we're not thinking it's a huge decision. Do I answer the phone or not? But it chips away at your decision making ability during the day, and we become less effective. And guess what happens? we burn out and we feel more overwhelmed. So simply having that off, having set times to check your email. There's tons of research again on this. Set times to check your email, that you sit down and you work through your email, that it's not all day long. Now, some people even have their emails set where when you email, you'll get an email response back that says, I check email between this time and this time, and you will get an answer then. Okay. And depending on your job, that may be a good option for you, that you have an autoresponder that says that. Okay. You might need to do that with text messages, depending on, your situation. Maybe you only check text messages at certain times. All right. What can we do to lower the input? I know a lot of people who live with the TV on in the background. My ex-husband was one of these people. The TV on was on the background all of the time. And I know there's probably going to be lots of comments about this. This is just my personal opinion, particularly if it's the news. I think that is input, that is subconscious input that we are putting in that we don't even realize. And if it's the news, it's negative. And your body is having to process all of this input, even if you're not thinking about it. And your body is being impacted by these negative news stories. Your brain is being rewired and impacted by these negative news stories, even if you're not thinking about it. Now, I do love to play music in the background. I will also play Christian music in the background. And I think, uplifting. But again, what are you listening to? What are you filling your brain with? Is it songs about, divorce and heartbreak and hurt and things like that? Like, we're not always cautious, but our brain is constantly on input. It's constantly on input, and it's constantly filtering and then rewiring in the neuroplasticity based on what we're telling it. Even the music that we're listening to can do that. That's why I choose to listen to a lot of Christian music. If I'm going to listen to music, I want it to be something that's positive, that's rewiring my brain in a positive way. How can you minimize the input that's coming in? I think your phone is the biggest way to do that. I also have all of my apps and all of those things. They're really all those notifications are turned off. The notifications that I have on are my text notifications. I use an app for my team called Voxer. Those notifications are on, and my email notifications are on. I think almost all the other notifications are off, because if it's not something that is really important, that would be time sensitive, then you don't need a notification. If it's not a time sensitive thing, you do not need a notification. And here's my thought on this. And again, guys, this is just all my personal opinion, so take what you want with it. I'm sure people will comment all their opinions. But my opinion is, if it's not time sensitive and I turn my phone on and I see alert, 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 again, this is more my brain has to take in and process. And this is why we feel overwhelmed. And this is why we feel exhausted. How can I minimize that? I even have people that I'm cautious with in my social media, who you follow. Now, I'm friends with a lot of people, but I do unfortunately have some people who their posts are maybe not the most uplifting, maybe not the most positive. I still want to stay friends with them. I just don't need to see all their posts. And you can go in and you can do that. You can go in and say you can limit what posts you're going to see, so that what are you inputting? What are you taking in your brain? How much input do you need? And if you're an extrovert versus an introvert is also going to be important, because if you're an introvert and you recharge by yourself, and I've done a ton of training on this, if people think extrovert and introvert is are you outgoing and do you like friends and parties, or do you hate people? Like, that is not what it is. That is not what it is. If that's what you've been told, that's not what it is. It's how do you recharge? And some people need to recharge alone. And so if you're an introvert, like my daughter's an introvert, all of that input is really, really going to make a difference, because that is a lot to have to unrecharge from, right? Like detox from. Do you take a day though where your body doesn't have to process all this information? Because I do believe it is the information that is overwhelming us, not the actual time. I don't think our time has changed. If I look back coaching women back in 2015, 2010, 2005, their schedules were not really that different than our schedules today. Their information overload was. We just didn't have the amount of media in our face, ads, dings. It is all over. Go to the doctor's office. There's going to be a TVs in there telling you ads, information you got to process. Go to the gym. I work out at the gym, and there's TVs all over and there are ads, information I have to process. Versus if I go to a gym and there's no TVs and I'm just there present, I'm present in the moment and I'm working out. But if I'm sitting here and I'm doing my weights and there's 10 TVs, this is information that I have to process. And if you're a conspiracy theorist, I'll put this out there. I do think that when people are constantly, all right, I'm just going to say it. You guys know I'm transparent. I think that when I am constantly processing information, other people's information, other people's agendas, it does not give me time and mental energy and space to process my own thoughts, my own ideas, my own values, priorities, beliefs. I think there is a benefit to keeping people overwhelmed so that they don't have time to think. If I'm at the gym and I'm working out and there's no TVs and I'm present with just me and my body with no earphones in, no earbuds in, no headset on, I have to be with my thoughts. I have to think. We don't do that anymore. The TVs are on and everybody else, probably except me, with few exception, has earphones in, has earbuds in, input, input, input. Everybody else's agenda, everybody else's input, even if it's music, everybody else's thoughts. It's the artist's thoughts and words. It's not ours. And I don't know that that's really good for us or for society. I think free thinking, independent free thinkers is good for society. As an American, it was independent free thinkers that led to the formation of my country. Like, I love Hamilton. How many of you love Hamilton, right? We are no longer independent free thinkers. We are being told what to think. We are being told what to think all day long. And it is making us exhausted and it is burning us out. So I want to encourage you. Number one, I would love to hear your takeaway from this conversation. I know this can be an uncomfortable conversation for people. And I'd love to hear, is there one thing that you want to try in your life to lower the input coming in so that you don't feel so stressed, so that you don't feel so anxious, so that you don't feel so overwhelmed? One of the things when I'm feeling a little anxious, when I'm feeling overwhelmed, when I'm feeling like this, is that it becomes difficult for me to respond to situations instead of just react. I just react because I'm always on edge. However, our power lies in our ability to respond, in our ability to slow down, think, say, hey, what do I want to do, and respond. Some of us need to take back our power. Some of us needs to step into our power. And we need to lower the input and be comfortable with silence and be comfortable with our own thoughts so that we can be free, independent thinkers and stop saying, I'm so busy. When really what we're saying is, I'm so overwhelmed. Let's cut out the noise. Cut out everybody else's agenda so and create the life that you want, that you deserve without the overwhelm. And if you need a time audit, and if just, comment time audit, I will send you the link for it. Life-changing. If you've never taken a Sabbath, try it. Also life-changing, super hard. Depending on where you're at in life, very hard. But there's small things that you can do to reclaim your life, and you deserve that. And I will see you guys next week on Wednesday at noon.